Confidence. What is it? Where does it come from? My definition of confidence is having the belief that you can do whatever you want to do. You can place a skill in there, you can place mathematics in there, you can place doubling in there, you can place the ability to drive, you can place the ability to do the moonwalk. If you have confidence, you believe that you can actually get it done no matter what. How do you develop confidence? Key question. A lot of answers perhaps, and a lot of reasons why I'm giving this communication to you via this particular talk, confidence, and all of the other talks. All of them are regarding confidence. If you develop confidence, just like I'm sitting here talking to you like I think I know what I'm talking about, you will have the ability to believe that you can do whatever is necessary for you to achieve your goals and success too. In other words, I believe that I have something important to say, so I'm putting it on film and I'm shooting it out to the masses, whereas you may believe that you want to become a speed skater or a wrestler or a rocket scientist or the next president or a senator or a mayor or whatever. All of those things are possible with confidence. And confidence, again, is a belief in your ability to do what I like to call the unbelievable. One other example of that last unbelievable statement. The most successful people in the world, and you have to, I design or I describe success as the ability to do what you would like to do and achieve that goal. In other words, if I want to become president, I become president. Or if I want to become an Olympian, I become an Olympian. It does not necessarily mean you're always going to strive and reach your goal, but the confidence portion of that last definition is you actually believe that you're actually going to get there, and so there's an inner drive driving you to try to achieve that goal. Does that make sense? Hopefully it will. If it doesn't, I'm going to give you several examples here of how confidence, what it is and how you can develop it. I worked at the United States Olympic Training Centers for 8 years, and in that time span I had the opportunity to meet a bunch of wonderful people, several Olympic champions, several Olympic champion coaches, several world champions, the list goes on and on and on. When you're at the USOEC and or the USOTC, and that stands for Education Center, United States Olympic Education Center, or United States Olympic Training Center, you are surrounded by a bunch of athletes and coaches that have a common goal. What I started to do early on was ask a lot of questions, because you can get a certain amount of information from books, but where do books come from? You ever thought about that? It's a good question, actually. Books generally come from someone. Some person writes a book. Where does that someone get their information? Someone generally interviews past, former, current Olympic champions. Someone generally interviews past, former Olympic coaches. Someone interviews past, former, current world champions, Pan American champions, any type of champion. Or switch it over to the business world. The gifted people that are in business, the CEOs of corporations, the managers of corporations, or switch it to the political sense, the presidents, the mayors, the senators, the people that organize and run the towns in the nation, or flip it over to the academic setting, the geniuses of the world that started off as geniuses and then they wound up at NASA somehow, or they started off as gifted and prodigies when they were younger and they kept on that path and they set some goals and they reached the highest level. The people that reach the highest level, you'll find out more often than not. If you read biographies, and you can kind of read about their stories, and there's usually, unless it's an autobiography, there's usually someone that wrote that book and they gather all that information and they put it on paper for you so that you can read. You can cut through the chase a lot of times, and that's what I did, or I tried to do when I was a coach at the United States Olympic Education Center, because I was surrounded by all of these people all the time, and I never reached that, that high in sport. I mean, I was a state champion, and I was an All-American in college, and I trained at the United States Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, but I never got to that highest level. So I thought, well, maybe I'm missing something. Let me ask these guys what they're doing. Again, we're talking about confidence. What I started to do was ask them, how'd you get here and where'd you come from and why did you believe that you can get it done? Overwhelmingly, most of the response was because I believed that I could get it done. There was something inside me driving me towards that goal. I believed it was possible before I could actually get there. In other words, they were using imagery and they were using self-talk and they were having a vision of what they saw in the future, and they concentrated and focused their energy on that, and that's what drove them. Where did the confidence come from? Perhaps maybe they set goals. I never really could figure out where it actually really came from. Something was inside of them driving them. In other words, because they felt so deeply and emotionally and attached about whatever their future goal was, it drove them. And that's what I believe was the confidence. And I think another part of the confidence, at least what I got from talking to these people over the years, was this. Because they hadn't done it before, did not mean they were incapable of doing it the next time. And that's where I think a lot of people that are striving and aspiring to be the very best and that aren't quite yet there, I think that's where there's a hiccup for them, and I think that's where they get caught. Because a lot of people, and I'm not any different than a lot of other people, I fall into this category too. Because I haven't done something sometimes in the past, I believe that it was impossible for me to do. As I developed, I started to believe that just because I haven't done it, that doesn't mean I can't do it. And I think once that seed is planted early on, and I think that's what happened with a lot of these people that reach success at the highest level. Somewhere along the lines, they believe that they could get it done. And if you watch a lot of television, every now and then, why did you become attached to gymnastics? Or what got you into wrestling? A lot of times it's because of a family member, a brother or a sister, or a mom or a dad, or it's because they watched it on television. So at a very young age, these kids or people, because their brother, sister, mom, or dad did it, or they watched it on television, something inside of them was attached to that sport. Again, we're talking about confidence. Now, why did they believe that they could do it? Perhaps they came from a family background that has that type of nurturing and development, or something inside of them was driving them to get it, or they did it once and they had some success early on and that just kept driving them. And I think that's the key to confidence. Because you've done it once, you can do it again. That's the average level of confidence, I'm calling it. I think the above average level of confidence is having that same believability, if you will, believing that you can get it done even before you've got it done. How do you develop that sense? I think you've got to practice. How do you practice believing in something that's not actually there? It's almost like magic, right? I think you can talk yourself into believing that you can get it done. Oh, let's flip it over. Let's take worry, for instance. What is worry? Have you ever thought about that? Worry is thinking about something in a negative way, and then it inhibits you from actually getting it done. In other words, I'm not going to cross the street because I will get hit by a car if I cross the street. And that's a very basic example, but here's what happens in sport. A lot of times, because of the lack of confidence, people will go into tournaments and they don't necessarily believe they can win it. And depending on the level of nervousness and panic, once it gets to panic, that's harsh. It's very difficult to do anything. Your muscles are very tight and you get very rigid. Because of the way that, because they've gone past nervousness and into that, that red zone of panic, and because of the lack of confidence, they get to that tournament now and they perform completely differently. Whereas the person that's nervous and they understand I can use this nervous energy to propel me to a higher level, they don't necessarily, or they are not necessarily in that panic mode. And because they've got that inner belief that they can get it done, even though it hasn't happened yet, that drives them. So you're saying, well, where does that come from? If they continue to do that each time, it gets a little bit stronger. So I'm saying you can decide today, just because you haven't done something, that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. In the last video, we talked about practice, persistence, and patience. And maybe they're in a little different order in that video, but that's the key essence of getting to confidence. Because you haven't done it yet, that doesn't mean that you won't do it the next time. If you persist and you practice and you're patient, ultimately you will develop a level of confidence that is unstoppable. What are some other ways that you can develop confidence? Using imagery, seeing yourself actually doing it before it actually happens. Mental rehearsal, visualization, those are the same things. Self-talk, talking yourself into the ability to get it done before it's actually happened. You're doing it anyway, I say, with worry. I say with worry, people are negatively self-talking to themselves and seeing negative pictures in their head. I say you're doing it anyway. Why not make it positive? Why not make it something that is productive? Why not help build your confidence? I think you can do this too. I talked about journaling a little bit of time ago in one of the other videos. If you start to write down what you're saying and what you're thinking about to yourself, and you can notice, and if you do this, you will notice, you'll become completely aware of it. If you start to notice by writing it down, you'll start to see the empowering, that's the talk that I talked about several videos ago, the empowering words and phrases and thoughts that are going through your mind. If you can start to have that become heavier or more of those versus the disempowering and, negative sort of images and thoughts, you will start to develop confidence. If you write it down, that's one way that you can do it. If you write down, you're aware of it, now you've got a ledger. Now you can start to place in the positive, productive self-talk. Now you can start to place in the positive, productive mental rehearsal or imagery or visualization, which as a byproduct will develop your confidence. Now when you go into a tournament, you will feel a little bit better about yourself. There are other techniques, and I've talked about it in other videos, but essentially, confidence, I think, is having the ability to believe without actually having done it. And I think you can develop those by interviewing champions and seeing how they did it, whether they're coaches or athletes, using self-talk and imagery positively and productively, so that you can actually see yourself and talk yourself up doing it before it actually happens, and then practicing persistently and patiently so that you continue to do that. If you make an error, doesn't matter, I'm going to continue to do it because I believe in my ability, and I'm eventually going to get there as long as I keep practicing. Confidence. You can find out more information like this at youtube.com, Coach Shannon. Coach Shannon Talks.